Namo Myoho Renge Kyo. All right, so I'm going to try to make this a shorter video. Basically, I wanted to speak to you guys briefly about the Shutei Gohonzon and about Gohonzon in general. These questions have been coming up lately in various ways in my emails and comments on the YouTube videos about what the heck is on the Gohonzon? What does it mean? What are the characters all about? All of us know that the central column is Namo Myoho Renge Kyo. This is the fundamental of all the teachings. But as Buddhists, we're all at many different levels, of course, but we're all researchers, curious. We want to know underlying truths. And if there's one truth about Buddhism is that its entire structure, its entire architecture of teachings is based on that fundamental, I would say, human desire to understand more deeply, to know more deeply. Now, some people, once you get some information and you feel like it makes sense to you, you're ready to just run with it and go for it. And it works or doesn't work, and then you move on. I would argue that it is one end of the spectrum of curiosity. You wouldn't try new things if you weren't curious to see if they worked, even if it only for you. And I don't downplay that at all. I consider myself to be more toward the other end of the spectrum, where, and I think Buddhism is truly structured to do this, where research, curiosity, and research is actually fundamental to our nature, that we never stop, that research and having more information and possibly more depth of understanding, solidity about it, it drives us. The research and the information gathering is almost obsessive. It's never ending. And, that's also, I think, where things like doubt can come in. But, my point is that the Shutei Gohonzon was created specifically for the entire range of curiosity about Gohonzon. When you first start practicing Buddhism, of course you want to know, what am I chanting to? What am I supposed to get out of this mandala, which means object of focus, mandala. And that's what the Gohonzon is. So why is the Gohonzon special? And you'll hear a lot of discussion that's based on old writings and scholarship of Buddhism, and that's valid. But for people at my end of the spectrum, and I don't consider myself to be the pinnacle, but as I've already identified, people who are constantly wanting to know, to assuage maybe the doubt that we sometimes have, or just the love of having more depth of knowledge. That question reappears the longer you practice in different ways. At first it's just, what does that say? How do you say it in English, right? And then later it becomes, as you study more and learn more about Buddhism and the Buddhist method, you begin, well, why are certain parts of the Gohonzon even there? Why are they important? Because I understand Namo Myoho Renge Kyo is central, but why does it need all this support staff, right? So that's a different level of asking about Gohonzon. And then certainly over the years we've seen some tribalness and organizational behavior that's very competitive. And this has been, you have to understand, once you start to see that there are different Gohonzons out there being pushed by different organizations, then obviously the next question is, well, which one's right? Right? And this kind of competition and seeking superiority smacks heavily of ego, doesn't it? Which is exactly what we shouldn't be stuck with in Buddhism, of all places. So that's very telling. And also you should know that the more you research this, you'll find that this kind of competition for superiority has existed since Buddha was alive, since Shakyamuni was around. Some actually tried to kill him so that they could branch off with their own interpretation of what enlightenment was. So this is just human nature. This isn't Buddhism. It's human nature, Buddhism through the lens of human nature, if you will. So we have that to contend with in all of the thousands of years of scholarship we have of these bodhisattva people who've, like Nagarjuna and Tendai and so forth, who simply sought to clear the cobwebs and the obfuscations and the politics out of the teachings and just get back to what Shakyamuni Buddha was so dedicated and driven to do. And that is to make this a secular practice, not a mystical, crazy idolatry or worshiping. That's a Western word, but more to what is this practice about? What are we trying to achieve? And that should be achievable for absolutely anyone who endeavors to do it. Anyone. No hierarchies, no authoritarianship, authoritarianism, sorry. This is not that kind of a hierarchical structure, which in itself, in the Western mind, so glued to socioeconomics as we are, is tough to embrace because it seems so foreign. Everyone wants to put a structure to this, but the structure is super simple: is everybody's equal. Ouch! That sounds so democratic, but it's not democratic. It's simply secular. It's like eating. Why you may eat different foods if you're a multimillionaire or if you're somebody who's barely has a paycheck, right? If that, even go to that. What if you're homeless? All of you have to eat. So Buddhism, in its declared invention, pure form, and teaching, is about that kind of access. You don't have to be a multimillionaire to enjoy a meal. You can be homeless and destitute, and if you find something to eat, you will enjoy it because it satiates your human need. Buddhism is like this, okay? So, in this vein, there has been a tremendous amount of information online by different people. Hugh McCormick and Camp Ross and Nichiren's Coffeehouse.net, all of which have disappeared over the last few years, very lamentably. But I had the unique opportunity, as many did, to have access to this wealth of information, some of which admittedly was a little cuckoo, but fun, entertaining. And there's always a kernel of information that you can learn, if not directly about Buddhism, but about how others might perceive the Buddhist method. All of it, see, to somebody like me, is goes into your database of knowledge about Buddhist scholarship and practice, right? So I ate it up. And recently I tried to refer somebody to do their own research online because I don't like to be, again, that hierarchical structure. I'm not the only one, right? I think I'm unique in that my whole mission in these videos is to present the information of Buddhism in a secular way, in a easy to understand, contemporary, of today kind of thinking, language and accessible knowledge, without the flowery texts I try to break those down so that you can be your own good researcher, right? Whether you do it a little or a lot, to have the right mindset, the right lens with which to read, whether it's Gosho or Sutra or commentaries, and understand it as you read these stories. Oh, I get the point, because you've learned how to get through the language and the storytelling and all of that, to perceive what's the point here, what's the meaning of this. Because critically, and Shakyamuni himself talked about this repeatedly, don't get stuck on the words, don't follow him as a human. Follow the meaning in what's being conveyed in the teachings. And there you will find your own specific path to your own enlightenment. Nobody owns it. Nobody can give it to you, take it away. It's yours to discover. It's already there. You just haven't, not discovered, revealed. And you need tools to reveal it. You need to understand, to some level, how your mind works and how to work with the way your mind works in order to access the brilliance and clarity that's already there. This is Buddhism. So in that effort, I'll get to it, I promise, I found in my archives, fortunately, a wealth of information that was online in these web rings and so forth, that I used to do lectures and write papers on and so forth. And I kind of shied away from assembling all of this information and putting it out there under my own auspices, because it didn't want to be joining the fray, if you will. And maybe there's a different way to put it, but this is how I communicate. Excuse me, mouth is dry. I wanted to put out this information in a way that wasn't authoritarian, and that was fair and as well researched as possible. And I've been practicing this since the 80s. And so I found out how many extant Gohonzons were still out there in different collections, whether they be in Buddhist collections or scholarship collections or museums. And there are a lot of them. And one of the people I was happy to find that was participating in these web rings and websites that had disappeared had decided to publish their own book. And they're not sponsoring this or anything, but this is a valuable resource. It was for me. It's the Nichiren Mandala Study Workshop, and this is a book of 123 extant Gohonzons, and some of them look like that. Okay? Some of them are not pretty, but next to it is a chart of what all are the characters, as you would say. This would be like the handwritten version, inscribed Gohonzon, and next to it is like a typewriter, any of you, or word processor. There you go, more contemporary. But the neat thing is they have catalog numbers, the inscription dates are in here, the size, the recipient, the actual location where it is, and at the bottom of these they have what each of the components of the Gohonzon are. See, Nichiren made Gohonzons throughout his teaching life, and he made them quite often specific to the people he was helping or teaching to his disciples. And sometimes those Gohonzons were very simple, Namo Myoho Renge Kyo, with a little bit of formalism with the bodhisattvas of the earth around it, or so it gave them a specific thing to focus on for their life. You see? And as he got deeper and deeper into creating these Gohonzons, he realized that he needed to make a more universal Gohonzon that he could hand out to anyone and they would benefit. And this is why we're taught to search around the Gohonzon as we chant. Yes, there's a focal point. Yes, it's right under Mu, at Myo, is kind of where we start focusing. But if our eye drifts around, that's okay, because what we're locating are areas of our own practice that we need to explore, to use, to empower us. The whole Gohonzon is the Lotus Sutra teachings, and by inference or by inclusion, the Lotus Sutra, it rests on the shoulders of all previous teachings. So we start with a focal point and we expand as we increase the breadth of our knowledge and experience in Buddhist method. So it's interesting to look through these Gohonzon. The Threefold Lotus Kwun selected a full Gohonzon that is simply Nichiren and has no extraneous personages in it that maybe created the Gohonzon. I looked for a specific Gohonzon that was Nichiren created, universal, without any editing or outside influences, any politic. I just wanted the clean Gohonzon, Nichiren, created for all of us. The Shutei Gohonzon is a teaching Gohonzon that has, throughout Nichiren's career, included every aspect of the Gohonzons that he created. So if the universal Gohonzon that he ended up with had like 36 different inscriptions, the Shutei has 41, because there were times when he created Gohonzons that had these little outliers that weren't included in the final universal Gohonzon, but they still are inscriptions that he used at one time or other on different Gohonzons. So the Shutei has all of those. I think there's 41, including his signature and so on and so forth. And as a research document, it's fascinating. And again, people like Michael McCormick, a great scholar in his own right. But I would say his scholarship is not so much about making contemporary assessments like I do of deciphering the code, if you will, of all of these great documents. He is a great scholar of the history of the documents. And so in that way, he's extremely helpful. And what I've done is I've assembled a lot of what he put together through his research, and the bibliographies included of, I don't know, a couple of dozen of sources. So it's a very authoritative document, and I really lament it disappearing from the internet. So what I did is I captured it, annotated it a bit, added my own little things here and there, but mostly it is all of this scholarship of all these people. And if you go to threefoldlotus.com, my resource website, the first page will have a button that says core study material or core materials, core study. Hit that button, you'll be taken to a home page for study, and it'll be filled with buttons with the titles of the documentation are on the buttons, so you'll know if you want to know about Daimoku or the 10 factors or whatever. It's a quick reference guides with white papers that I've culled over the years of practice. There will be at the top. The second link, the second button, will say, Gosho Personages Map. And if you click on that, you'll go to an HTML page that you can download, you can print, you can read it online.